Joined now by Dylan Powell, former Indiana football player. He's the guy that remember from that viral Tom Allen video that John pointed out in the break. I didn't realize that you were the first guy. Then it was, I think, Taiwan Mullen jumped on his shoulder or something.
Yeah, I think Mike Ziemba, Mackenzie Nora. There's a bunch of people. I think everybody just kind of started doing it after that. But it was a great moment for us in the football program.
A lot of people have given Tom some grief over the LEO thing, the word thing, and all that stuff. What did it do, though? I mean, because it sure looked and sounds like it helped get you guys together as a unit.
Yeah, to me, just the Elio culture, I feel like it's just the foundation of our program. I think it's a very great message and can really bring a bunch of different diverse people into an environment to really bond and become brothers and really fight throughout a long season. A lot of people don't realize how long that season really can be, just the off season leading into the season, and really just unify everybody together and really finish the season.
And on Saturday, to me, I thought it was, there's no doubt you can't take away what Tom Allen and Indiana and yourself accomplished 2019, 2020. But to me on Saturday, I would put that game up with one of Tom Allen's top coaching performances, because to go up 7-0 and then to give up 24 unanswered points, bowl eligibility is out of the question. Michigan State's fighting for bowl eligibility. To get the team galvanized at halftime, to fire them back up, to win that game. I think a lot of people kind of wrote Indiana off. We had Don Fischer on. He said head into the locker room, there were a lot of heads down. It didn't look like the team had much confidence. What kind of message does Tom Allen send in that locker room at halftime? I know you weren't in there, obviously, but in those type of situations, what do you envision his message was? And to me, I'm still shocked that they, considering the circumstances, were able to come out. I think it was one of the better wins he's had during his time there, just considering the circumstances.
I think the message is we're just going to fight. You're down by 17. The game's not out of hand by any means. I mean, anything could happen. I mean, just my first game there at Penn State, you come back and you beat them in overtime. If you fight, you continue to believe, and you just all rally together, I mean, anything's possible. There's 60 minutes in a game, or you play for 60 minutes or overtime, however long it's going to take to win the game. And I'm sure that was his message. Really, it's about character and who you are as an individual. How are you going to let that game? Are you going to lay down, or are you going to fight? And I think he's done a great job of preaching fight all the time, no matter what the circumstances have been, no matter what kind of the record's been during the season. I think that was probably part of his message then.
Dylan Powell, former IU football player, with us now. Dylan, NIL is now the driving force. Football is the engine that drives the train in college athletics at most schools, but across the country, it is the sport. For Indiana, that hasn't always been the case. You tweeted out something last week as far relating to NIL, and that I've said this earlier, if people that are IU fans, if you want, you can't sit there and wait for the team just to be good. We talked about Texas has a deal for every freaking lineman that comes there for $50,000. I'm like, you can't compete with that if you don't have anything close to that. So how do you expect to have as good an offensive line as someone that can? And things like that, but that's you're much closer to it than I am.
Yeah, and I don't think you could say it any better. I mean, we arguably play in the toughest division in football. Two teams right now fighting for the playoffs. One's trying to crack the top 10. I mean, those guys are probably out there. I mean, Ryan Day said he needs $13 million just to keep his roster intact. That's not even going out and paying new recruits and stuff like that. Pretty sure we only paid $150,000 just to keep our players, just several players. That's nothing to those other schools. I think we were one of the only teams in the Big Ten that didn't have any NIL money going out for the 2021 class. And I mean, if you're not going to get that support from the administration for Coach Allen, if you're not going to get that type of money, it's impossible to compete in the Big Ten East like that. I mean, saw different stats, reading some articles. I think per Purdue said they've got $6 or $7 million that they need. Maryland said they need to start with at least $6.5, $7 million. So it's like, yeah, the $1 million donation we got is great, but I mean, that's nothing. You're just not going to be able to compete. I think in today's atmosphere, we kind of missed, our administration kind of missed jumping the gun there at the beginning. I mean, we had a bad year in 2021, and I was part of that. So I'd take just as much blame as anybody. Some injuries. I don't think we have necessarily the roster depth to deal with huge injuries. And I think that's when the portal can come in. NIL money for different recruits can come in and help us build that depth, really turn stuff around faster. Because, I mean, even saw an article, I think Day had said $2 million for a top quarterback, $1 million for a good left tackle pass rusher. I mean, and we only have, what, $1 million total? And this isn't just money for football. This is money for all the athletic programs at Indiana. I mean, yeah, football makes most of the money, but if this money's coming in and everybody's being successful, this will help every student athlete.
Well, go ahead. I was going to just comment on this comment from Rudy that says all this to play amateur sports. Well, it's not just that, though, because they're bringing money in. And I think people forget that. There is income coming in that has been generated for years that they didn't get. And that money is just off the charts now. So that's why. Dustin?
Well, I was going to say one of the things that I think has got to be very difficult for a coach like Tom Allen, and there's plenty others out there that are going to be battling this, is he talked about, this isn't, like you said, Dylan, this isn't just to get recruits. This is to keep your team. Part of the thing is you can develop a player, get him to know your system, get him to be a leader, and then all of a sudden, if Ohio State or Michigan sees that talent on the field and comes knocking and they've got a spot open, they can offer him $250,000, $300,000. I mean, that's life-changing money to a lot of these kids, obviously. So it's got to be incredibly difficult. And I think what's got to be difficult in my opinion, for Tom Allen is to find that balance between being grateful that, yes, a $1 million donation is a big deal. At the same time, when you look at who we're competing against, we need 10 times that much money to be competitive in this league. I mean, I do not envy right now being in the position of like a Tom Allen, a Greg Schiano, some of those sort of guys that are at these, they're playing in a tough division, and yet they aren't getting quite the same support as these other programs.
Yeah, and I think that's a major point. I mean, even the Group of Five schools are getting some things. I saw Cincinnati players are getting every single Cincinnati player is getting $25,000. SMU's getting $35,000, every single one of them. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a shame that we can't even compete with that right now. Like I said, I think it's a lot of lack of preparation of this is going to be the landscape of college football. We need to have stuff like this, but it feels like we're kind of years behind. But like I said, I think you could turn stuff around faster if you get that money in through the portal. You can go get bigger guys. You can build the roster depth to withstand some different injuries and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think that's on the administration to do. I think Coach Allen's doing everything he can to try to get that in, but they have to show him that support. I mean, heck, from what I've seen, the second or third winningest coach in IU history, the best one since Mallory, and not getting that support, getting a ton of fire after these last 2 years. It's not like the history of Indiana football has been great. So hopefully we didn't miss that chance after those two big seasons to go out and continue to build and get the necessary stuff with facilities and stuff like that.
Speak of that, Sean asked Dylan, beyond NIL, how much are facilities hurting the current state of this program?
Yeah, I would say that's a major thing. I mean, our indoor's not very good. It's pretty old. I mean,
they need to paint that thing. Just paint it white and put some lights in there, man.
Honestly, my personal belief, I believe that could lead to some of the injuries that are happening just with the playing surface in there. I think there's some weight room things that were up in the air of some different kind of renovations there that kind of fell through after we didn't necessarily have a great season. And that, to me, that's kind of questioning the administration as well. But I would venture to say as well, we're probably one of the only Big Ten schools that don't have a football-only weight room. You don't have the nutrition that an Ohio State, Michigan have. And I know people will say that's just complaining about stuff, but it plays a major role in recruiting. It plays a major role in bringing kids into the school because they're going to go to all these other places. I mean, Purdue's got a brand new facility. It's beautiful. I visited there when I was transferring. And to me, being an older guy, I didn't really care as much about the money and aspect, stuff like that. I wanted to go to a good culture, and that was Coach Allen. But, I mean, these new kids, I think, are more materialistic, so you need that kind of stuff. We can't be at the bottom of the Big Ten in the facilities. We have to be at the middle or at the top at all times to truly compete.
The stadium itself seems to be sufficient. Probably need a new press box. There's no probably. They need a new
You would
press
say
box.
that.
Well, you just call it the press box, the entire
Right.
thing. It sweets the whole deal. But of course that takes money and chicken and the egg deal there. But the indoor the facility has become an arms race. Even Northwestern has built this monster facility right on the lake. It's gorgeous.
They got the new stadium coming now too.
The Fitz-Carlton.
Yeah, the Fitz-Carlton. Oh my God, that's hilarious. But yeah, so because Indiana can compete, we've seen this just a couple of years ago. You guys were right there, and the fans loved it, and they responded, and they just got to get back there. But it's just like voting. If you don't vote, you can't complain, and if you're not helping with NIL, I guess you kind of can't complain that too much there either, right?
Yeah, I think another thing that kind of raised some eyebrows for me was when Coach Allen had to make some staffing changes. He had to take that salary out of his salary. I think that's a huge issue just as a former player and seeing that happen, because to me that screams there's no support there. I don't know if, heck, you see Nick Saban or one of these guys, if they're getting rid of their guys, they're getting more money to go get somebody that's better. I love all the coaches I've had. Like, I've respected every single one we've had. But if the head man thinks there needs to be a change at different places, then he's got to have the financial ability to go do that. I don't really see much support with that happening.
Well, and also, though, we don't know. I don't know what went on there. Was there, Tom Allen said, no, I want him to stay, and or who knows what that contract situation was. I definitely don't know. I understand what you're saying and agree to a degree. It depends on who's making the decision on making that. If that's his hire and his suggested amount, then he has to bite the bullet on that a little bit when it doesn't go right, I think. But other schools are doing it, though, that can't. They can afford it. They've got money to burn. What about former, especially, I know there's not a ton of them, but former pro players, getting those guys to kind of get involved in the NIL through some giving and, more importantly, their voice. That does more than anything is those guys asking for it, I think. Personally, I would think that, but I would try to do that. But I don't see Indiana really using their players in that way on the football side.
Yeah, I think that's a great start to building a really good collective that could be helpful. Really, I think that's why you see a ton of these schools building collectives with people in charge to really go out and head getting those financial gains, reaching out to the alumni to get that money in. And I think that's where the planning aspect of it kind of comes in, of not being behind there, and really just scrounging up money wherever you can to be successful. I think that's a great idea. Just pro players being able to give alumni, even me, if I can pitch in $100 here and there to give and really support Coach Allen in this program as much as you can.